You look nice.
Well, thank you.
Today is September 13th, 2018, and we have a cat named Kitty. Hi.
She's kind of fat.
A little extra
She
there.
loves to eat. Sometimes she doesn't eat all of her food, and then she'll come crying to me for more, and I say, you eat that in the dish, you don't get any more.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll look at me, and she'll look at my finger, and she'll look back at the dish, and she'll go eat it.
How old are you today?
No, I'm 96,
96. Okay. Couple months more.
and I'll be 97.
Wow. 97 years.
It's too old. I'd rather be back about 40 or 50.
Can you think of anything that's the same today as it was back then?
The old courthouse.
That's right.
That's about the only thing.
And there was a university here.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a river.
Yeah, there was a river.
And Mary's Peak.
Yeah, my brothers used to go down to the river to swim.
Sure.
That's the only place they had to swim.
Did you guys have a car when you were a kid?
My older brother Bill had an old car,
Hmm.
an old touring car. 4 people could sit in it.
Okay.
Had a back seat. It was a pretty big size one. We could get a lot of people in there.
So back then you probably crammed more than 4 people
Yeah, we
sometimes.
probably had more than 4. It was 8 of us all together. There was 7.
7 siblings. Wow.
Mhm.
But that was pretty common back then.
Yeah, there was big families. Everybody had a big family.
Hmm. And now, just you, huh?
Mhm. There was one baby that was born after me, but it was born dead, I guess. So
That was also common back then.
yeah.
Hmm. Well, you probably haven't thought about your siblings for a while.
No, I really haven't thought about them there. Seems so long ago.
Right. When did you lose your last sibling?
Oh, let me see. Chauncey died about
5 years
5
ago?
or 6 years.
5. And tell me about your dad, what you remember about him.
Well, I remember him just before he died because I think my mom was giving me a bath or something, and he was laying in bed, and my mom said that he wanted to see me, and so she took me into him, and I sat in there, and he talked to me and loved me, and then she took me out, and then soon after that she said he died. So I thought that was pretty nice that I got to be with him,
Sure.
at the very last. I was the only one that did. I don't know where the other kids were, probably outside or something.
Wow. And that was, how old were you at that time?
I think I was about 4.
4.
Yeah.
Where did you live in town at that time?
We lived out there in the old place, the old house,
What street was that?
9th Street.
9th Street.
Mm-hmm.
And it was before 9th Street was
9th and
developed.
Circles is what
That's
it
right.
was. Yeah.
So it's right where the Rite Aid is or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right on that corner.
Very different now.
Yeah. Had to walk all the way into town to school.
Yeah, how far was that walk, or how long did it take, you think?
Well, I don't know how long it took, but the old school is still there, Lynn Benton now.
And your mom, she had to take care of all the kids by herself.
Yeah. All of my dad's family lived back east,
Uh-huh.
and so all she had was, my Uncle Bert. I don't know if he really helped her any or not.
And back east, where your dad came from, was that Tennessee or
He came from New York.
from New York? Oh, upstate New York.
Yeah.
It was your mom's family that came from Tennessee?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Conklin, New York, I guess, was it?
Yeah. Well, when my dad came out to Oregon with his mother, they bought this piece of land and started building on it and everything. So really wasn't my mom's, and my dad was trying to get it away from his. They always said that their mother owned it and that he didn't, and they tried to get it away from me, from my dad. So there was an Uncle Jake, and he was coming out to Oregon to tell my mom that it was hers, that they had given up all claim to it and the farm was hers.
Wow.
And he stayed overnight in Albany, and he died. They don't know whether somebody killed him or not.
But he was out with an important message to deliver. And
Yeah, to tell my mom that the place was hers. And he just stayed overnight and died. And she still thinks that somebody came and murdered him.
hard to prove at this point.
Yeah, it is. Because they didn't want her to get the place.
Right. So it was bad luck, it seems.
Yeah, really, it was terrible.
And then there was the other bit of bad luck. Your dad canceled the health insurance, or life
Yeah.
insurance, right?
Yeah, he had a big policy and he'd cancel that. So that made it kind of bad. So we lived off of the county, but he got $10 a month to live on. Can you imagine that? But she managed. She was able to grow a big garden and have lots of food for everybody. We never went without anything, really.
When did you meet Grandpa?
At the skating rink. I think I was 16. Yeah, I went out there. I went with my brother because Brother Bob always liked to skate and he was a real good skater. So he took me that night and I was skating with this kid that I knew from school, but I hated him. And he was trying to make me skate backwards.
Oh.
And I couldn't, and I kept falling down, and so Jim took, and he was sorry for me, so he took over and I skated with him.
Yeah.
Got rid of that other guy. I didn't like him at all. Well, then we started going together. We had many breakups. He taught me how to drive, and that was pretty traumatic at times.
Yeah.
You have to go through the gears back in then, and that was kind of hard to get used to.
Is that when you banged your knee? When did you hit your knee?
Yeah, that was on the 4th of July when we were going skating and with this other kid, and it was the other kid's car. His dad just got this new car, and we were driving that, and Jim was driving, and it was along the coast, and it was a real crooked road.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was just like this, you know. And we could look straight ahead and see this guy coming, and he was taking all these curves really fast. And Jim said, well, look at that guy. Look, he's just taking all the road and he's going so fast. Well, why didn't he try to get out of his way?
Right.
He didn't.
He just looked at it.
Smacked us on a curve and hit on.
Wow. Did that guy survive, or was he drunk, or what?
He wasn't hurt at all, I don't think. I was the only one that was hurt. And I remember him saying, for God's sake, get her out of the middle of the highway. I guess they laid me out in the middle of the highway.
Wow. That must have been scary.
Because I was knocked out.
Right.
And
that was what woke you up. You heard those words.
That woke me up. I was laying out and my head bleeding. And
did you have seat belts back then?
somebody took me to the hospital and got me sewed up, and then And then Jim's dad came, picked us up.
How did you feel when Grandpa went to war?
Well, I didn't like it, of course.
And you were pregnant.
I didn't think that he should have gone to war because he was not physically able, and he did everything to get in the war. Because he was 4F.
Right.
And he decided that he could go as much as anybody else, so he went to his doctor in Portland and had an operation on his sinuses. He had really bad sinus trouble, and the doctor made a little hole up here someplace, and it drained all the stuff out of his nose, so he didn't have trouble with that anymore. Then he got his doctor to give him some medication for high blood pressure, because he had high blood pressure. And then he went back and take the test again, and he memorized the eye chart because he couldn't see.
Right.
He had to get that taken care of.
Nice work.
And then he had his medication and everything. And so then after he memorized the eye chart and got through that way, the guy said, "Well, if you want to go so bad, just go." Well, when I found out he was going to go overseas and I had to go home, and I didn't want to go home and get a job and work again. I was tired of working. And so I decided I wanted a baby.
Yeah.
And I told him that I would like to have a baby, you know. He says, no babies in wartime. It's not the time to have a baby. You just forget about that. You can't have one. And so I thought, well, I'll just do what I please then. So I just got pregnant.
Wow.
Figured it out for myself.
That was a good thing.
Yeah.
Worked out.
But,
And you weren't alone then, right?
Yeah.
During the
So
war.
I liked it as far as I was concerned, because I had fun with him, you know. It was fun to have him and teach him everything, and I thought that Jim would be pleased, but he never paid any attention to it.
Must have been difficult for him too, to have a baby that you don't have a relationship with, you know?
Yeah. They never did bond at all. It was very, he would criticize him everything he did, and he used to suck his thumb and then pull that out of his mouth, make him cry, and it was just a circus.
I've pieced together that Grandpa was a better grandpa than he was a father.
That's right. He never was a good father to the kids at all. I always hated that, but what can you do? You can't make him be a good father.
No, you can't.
He was more interested in the things that he liked to do. He got into the Legion and the Legionnaires. In fact, I think he was president of the Legionnaires, and then he got to be having the National Guard.
Right.
And all those things. And
I
know one Sunday I took Jimmy to church, and I don't know why, somehow or another I couldn't come and get him, and I called Jim to go get him. And he never did. And a friend of mine came out of church and saw him sitting there on the curb, you know, and so he called me and said, you know, well, is somebody going to pick him up? Because he's still sitting here waiting. And I said, no. So she brought him home. But I never I never asked him to do anything from then on.
No more responsibilities.
No more responsibility, because he just didn't take it.
Well,
which I thought was pretty ornery on his part. Yeah, so I always had all the charge of the children and everything, and I knew it was my birthday, and I expected him to at least bring me a cake or something, you know, and he didn't do anything at all. I didn't get a cake. He didn't say happy birthday or anything. And Sue saw that that was happening. And so she said to me, you tell me all of the dates of your birthday, your anniversary, the whole thing.
I will make sure that this happens.
Make sure that you get something on every one of them. And I did from then on. I always had a nice gift of jewelry and watches, and she bought me really nice things.
Did you guys ever go fishing?
They did, but I never did. They always rode their bicycles, and they'd go. They had some friend that lived over around Lebanon, and they'd go over there and get him and
How did they get to Lebanon back then?
their bicycle.
By bicycle. That got to take about an hour and a half.
I don't know how long it'd take, and they'd go up on Three Finger Jack.
Really?
Yeah.
You ride their bike to Three Finger Jack?
Yeah.
When did you first get to travel internationally?
Oh, that was after he came home from the war.
Where did you go first?
Oh, I can't even remember. It was probably Germany.
Yeah.
Everything was so strange. You just look at everything. Well, we'd look at ask questions of the people, you know, and get all they'd tell you where to go and what to do and what to see. And
Did you like the food?
yeah, it was usually pretty good. We liked German food.
Now, at what point did Grandpa start eating only exactly what he wanted to eat? You know, and he would start to bring his own food with him, I guess.
He'd make his own soup.
He made soup. Okay.
Yeah, he made soup and hot chocolate, I think. And he always brought that in his cup and everything. And when we were in a motel, of course, there's lots of water, so you can make your own.
Okay.
So,
nice. What was your favorite experience from traveling?
I think probably in Germany and going up where Hitler stayed up in the sky,
I haven't seen it.
in that loft up in the...
Oh, there's a loft where he used to be.
Did he?
Was that in Berlin? Okay. I'll look for that next time I'm there.
Yeah.
So over the years, how many dogs did you have when you were younger?
Oh, it must have been 3.
You had a couple of jobs, right? You started Curly's Kids back in the 90s.
Yeah, my first one was with a doctor as a receptionist. And he was a nice old doctor. I really liked him.
What kind of doctor was he?
Just a general physician.
And what did he have you doing?
I was just a receptionist. And well, when I got out of high school, I decided that I wasn't trained for anything. What was I? Nothing but a housekeeper. That's all I knew. The only thing I took in high school was all cooking and all that housekeeping stuff. And so I decided I'd go back to take
another course.
And in bookkeeping. So after I got through with the bookkeeping course, I decided I'd go out and sell myself as a bookkeeper.
Okay, good.
Which I really didn't know much about.
You had one course on, do you?
One course, not supposed to be one.
Well.
So I got this they told me to that I should go and work at the Chamber of Commerce, and that way that I would learn all the business people in Corvallis and find out where the work is.
Right.
And so that's what I did, and that's how I found this doctor.
That was pretty smart.
That he wanted somebody for a receptionist, so I applied and I got it, and I think I worked for him maybe 5 years, and he retired.
That's pretty good, 5 years for your first job.
So then I went over to Christensen Brothers.
Mm-hmm. I know them.
And went over to theirs.
Yeah.
And it came a Saturday, and Jim had planned for us to go skiing, and we were going to stay overnight. They had a lodge up there then, and we were going to stay overnight.
Cool.
And so it came noon on Saturday, and she said, "I'm sorry, but you have to work today. You can't take the day off." And I said, "But I have plans for today, and I'd like to keep my plans." And well, you just can't do it. You have to work today, and that's all there is to it. So I thought for a minute, and I says, "Okay, I quit.
I quit.
I quit." And so they just started howling. They were even crying
Really?
that I was going to quit. You know, "Can't you change your mind?" And I said, "No, my mind is made up. I'm going."
Yeah.
And that's all there is to it.
Good for you.
I just stuck to my guns.
And what was your next job?
Firestone.
Firestone. You worked at the tire factory, or the
Well, it's just a store.
retail store? Okay. What did you do there? Reception?
No, I was a bookkeeper.
Oh, bookkeeper.
Yeah. And I hardly knew debit from credit.
Well, that's all right.
But I did the bookkeeping for them,
Uh-huh.
and it was a good job. My boss was kind of goofy, but he was always, he and another gal worked, and every time he'd go by us, he'd put his hand on our side or something and give us a pinch or something. You know, we just ignored him.
Right.
But one day we had a gal that was new, and she didn't know his
That's what he does.
He did it to her, and she hollered.
Did she say, "Don't you do that"?
No, she just let out a holler.
Woo!
Yeah. And she was waiting on a customer, of course. So she was really embarrassed, but we told her she just had to ignore stuff like that.
You know, I think today they wouldn't tolerate that, you know. Yeah.
So I worked there until it came when we were going to get married, and so Jim had it all planned that we'd have 2 weeks for our honeymoon, and he had it all planned out what we were going to do and where we were going to go. And so I asked for the 2 weeks off, and he said, "Well, I'm sorry, but you can only have 1 week. I can't do without you for 2 weeks." And so I thought about it, and Jim was really mad. "You can't take 2 weeks off." So I said, "Well, I'll just quit then."
Yeah.
And so I said, "Well, okay, we'll go on our 2 weeks, and if I don't have a job when I come back, you find out how we're going to have the money." And so I took the 2 weeks off, and when I came back, still had my job. But he had hired his wife to take my place.
Oh.
So he says, "Well, you're going to have to pay her that 1 week."
All right.
But I said, "Okay, that's fair. I don't care."
How did she do? Do you remember? She didn't.
Oh, yeah, she was all right. It was this old guy that came in. he was a logger from LC,
Okay.
and he was just kind of, he was a nice, real nice fella, and always, loved to talk and everything. And he took a liking to me, and I'd always have to make his bank, have to go to the bank for him and deposit his money, and he had a lot of money. And so crazy things would happen all the time, and my boss used to say he makes eyes at you all the time, Said you better watch out for him.
Yeah.
And it came my birthday, I think. I don't know how I found out on my birthday. But when I got home, there was a dozen red roses.
Wow.
From him.
Well, it certainly wasn't from Jim.
No. And I thought, what in the world am I going to do now?
Right.
And so next time I saw him, I said, I cannot accept those from you. You've got to take them back. And he said, well, now why? And I says, you only give those to people you love. And I says, and you don't love me. He says, oh, but I do. And he just wouldn't leave me alone. But he was just crazy that way, in a way, nice way,
How did you finally chase him off?
Well, it took a long time, because then when I quit and went with Jim, I didn't see him, of course, for years. And then when I came home to have the baby, he evidently found out I was home, and he came to see me. Can you imagine? And I thought, what if he's here when Grandpa comes to see me too?
Oh my. And he won't believe that Jimmy's yes.
So every now and then he'd come to the door, and I just got so much of it. I said, now listen, this has got to quit.
Right.
I said, no more. I don't want to see you anymore.
And he finally left you alone. Maybe you've met somebody else.
And then after the war, and Jim was home, and we were in Portland, and in a restaurant eating, and by golly, if he wasn't there with his wife and 2 children.
Oh, really?
And I saw him at this next table down, and I thought, oh, now what am I going to do?
That's funny.
So
What'd you do?
said to Jim, come on, I'll go and introduce you to him. And so we went over to his table and talked to him, and it's the last I saw of him.
Wow.
But kind of crazy to have an old man like that.
Yeah, it is. To have...
He wasn't old. He was older than I, but he wasn't that old. He was a good-looking fella, but he just didn't want to leave me alone.
I'm glad he met somebody. It looked like he was happy with his wife.
Yeah, and he had 2 cute little girls, and he should have been happy with them. That got him off my